The reason I made this guide is pretty straightforward. I'm just sick of sniper guides where the person clearly doesn't know what they're talking about. You can tell they haven't really played the class seriously at a high level, and a lot of the information ends up being either super basic or straight up misleading. This guide's different. I've got around 13,000 hours in TF2 with a huge chunk of that on sniper. I've been competing for years and have been considered one of the top snipers in my region for a very long time. I'm not saying that to brag, it's just so you know that this guide comes from actual experience and not guesswork. So let's kick this guide off with one of the biggest foundations of sniper aim, which is your sensitivity. I'm not here to give you some magic number because honestly there isn't one. What matters is that your sensitivity is consistent, reliable, and built around your comfort and control. Most experienced snipers, myself included, lean towards low sensitivity. And there's a reason for that. When you're trying to hit tiny heads across the map, especially while holding long angles or you're trying to quick scope, low sense gives you finer control. It's not about being slow, it's about being deliberate. Personally, I've played with sensitivities that let me do a full 360 with maybe perhaps 40 to 50 centimeters of mouse movement, but it can vary. Some go even lower. It all depends on what you can control comfortably. Don't just copy and paste a sensitivity from a good sniper. You want to be copying their process instead. There's a sweet spot where your aim feels natural. You're not overshooting your flicks or wrestling to stay on target. You're not micro adjusting like you're defusing a bomb either. It's just smooth. So here's a quick method to dial it in. Flick to a target, then back to center. If you're overshooting, lower your sensitivity. If you're undershooting or too slow to flick, raise it slightly. You can also track a moving teammate in spawn. You'll instantly feel if your sense is too jittery or sluggish. You want to feel like your crosshair is an extension of your mind, not a tool you're constantly fighting. Once you find something that feels comfortable, you want to start building muscle memory through constant practice. Also, you want to be disabling mouse acceleration. I can't stress this enough. Consistency is key, and Mouse Excel throws that out the window. You want to be turning it off in both Windows and in game. To do this, you simply just need to go to mouse settings and turn enhanced pointer precision off. To do this in game, you just go to options and turn it off from there. Zoom sensitivity is a big one that a lot of people seem to overlook. This controls how fast your aim moves while you're scoped in. You want this to be consistent with your hip fire sensitivity, or at least feel that way, in my opinion at least. Try setting your zoom sensitivity ratio to 0.793471. That's the 1-to-1 ratio value that keeps your scope sensitivity matched with your unscoped sensitivity relative to screen space. It makes transitioning between unscoped tracking and scoped flicking way smoother. Of course, that number is not magic, it's just a solid baseline. You want to be feeling it out. If you're whiffing zoom flicks, adjust slightly until your scoped aim feels just as comfy as your unscoped ones. I do have a config that you can copy, but we will get to that part of the video later. At the end of the day, don't get lost chasing decimals. Once you find a sensitivity that feels good, stick with it. That's how you build your muscle memory. Brain needs repetition, not perfection. Jumping between settings constantly is like learning to shoot with a new rifle every week. Changing your sensitivity is only good if you feel your current one is uncomfortable. Pick a sense, commit, practice, and let your muscle memory do the rest. Alright, so let's talk positioning. Probably one of the most underrated yet powerful tools in your sniper's toolkit. It's not just about finding a cool spot and waiting for heads to pop into your crosshair. It's about survivability, impact, and making the enemy play around you. Good positioning turns a decent sniper into a terrifying one. Map knowledge is everything. You gotta know where the good sight lines are, where the high ground is, and how players tend to move throughout the map. If you don't know these things, you're going in blind, and that's a recipe for getting clapped. Take maps like Badwater or Gully Wash. There are very specific lanes and holds that favor snipers. If you're not familiar with those spots, you're giving up potential picks. High ground gives you more vision, more time to react, and less exposure. You're harder to hit, and you control more of the map, and your shots are gonna be more punishing. It's really that simple. If you're always sitting on the ground level, you're asking to get bombed or flanked. You want to be taking advantage of rooftops, any ledges, or any type of elevation that gives you a view without being wide open. You want to be annoying to reach. You want players to say, well, how do I even get to that guy? That's when you know you're doing it right. However, in saying this does come with a huge disadvantage though, and that is sniping alone, but I'll get to that part later. Also, don't get too comfortable. I see this mistake all the time. People find a decent spot, get a few kills and decide, yep, this is where I live. That's how you get dominated. You need to move, and you need to move constantly. Shoot, reposition, and you need to be repeating that process. The second the enemy knows where you are, you're literally on borrowed time. If you get rushed while scoped in, it's usually because you stayed there for too long or you weren't paying attention. Probably one of the core things I teach on Sniper is a class that punishes predictability but also gets punished by it. You really need to be more dynamic. You need to keep changing your angles, and you need to be changing your position. You don't want to be in the same place twice after every kill. You need to be playing with your team. Sniper isn't just a solo deathmatch class. Good sniper helps the team hold ground. They deny any angles and they shut down pushes without even firing a shot sometimes. Seriously, just your presence alone, like watching a key sightline, can shut down entire pushes. If the enemy knows there's a sniper watching the choke, they'll stall or try to go a different route. That delay there gives your team time to rotate, set up, or really punish any mistakes that they try to do. And yeah, go for kills, but make sure they matter. Picking off a soldier might feel good, but if your team is getting rolled because you weren't watching a very common key push lane, you didn't really do your job. Countering the other enemy sniper, and this is quite a big one. Snipers will quite literally hunt each other down, and that's probably the game within the game. If the other sniper knows where you are, they'll probably pre-aim it. So again, as I said before, you want to be switching up your positions after every shot. Even if you don't get a kill, you want to avoid being predictable. And I just want to talk a little bit about medic buffs. If you're in a sniper versus sniper battle, and having that 185 overheal from your medic is quite literally a game changer. It means the enemy quite literally has to full charge to kill you, while you can take a body shot or non-fully charged headshot and still survive. And yet, I see so many snipers never asking for any buffs from their medic. If you're not getting overhealed before a SVS, you're just giving yourself a harder time. You want to be taking the buff, and you want to be scoping in with confidence. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the SVS playbook that no sniper really teaches, and I think it's going to be quite of value to you guys. So a simple but powerful trick is, once you are buffed to 185 and you've scoped in, just wait. You don't want to click the second you see the enemy sniper. If they are not scoped in yet, don't waste your shot. You want to be patient, and you want to shoot them after they scope in. Now you may ask, why is that? Well, they stop moving, making them an easier headshot. Your own scope charge will have built up by the time he scopes in, and this really increases your chance of getting the kill, especially if they are buffed. And you know you're not going to die when he scopes in and headshots you, as you're buffed. So it's a little counterintuitive, but this method of waiting, charging your scope, and receiving your buffs will win most of your SVS more consistently than trying to flick the second you see them scoped in. You're making the fight and the SVS play out on your own terms. So there's different types of aim styles that you really want to be incorporating into your gameplay. Tracking is all about keeping your crosshair on a moving target and following their path until you're ready to click. It's super effective against players who strafe predictably or aren't moving erratically. If you've got low to medium sensitivity, this will probably feel most natural to you. You'll find yourself relying on slow, controlled movements, using mostly your arm to keep things smooth. This style rewards patience and restraint. Don't rush the shot, just let your crosshair sit on the target until it feels right to click. Flicking is the opposite of tracking. Instead of slowly following your target, you snap your crosshair to where they are and shoot. It's very fast, very aggressive, and honestly, it's quite satisfying when you do land those headshots. You'll usually see flicking in fast-paced situations like point-blank scenarios or reacting to a scout jumping at your face. I personally do not recommend this aim style unless you're in a dire situation and the only way to kill the player trying to kill you is when tracking or pre-aiming is not possible. Pre-aiming. This is where the brain comes in. Pre-aiming is about predicting where your target is going to be before they get there. You're already holding the angle, your scope is charged, and you're ready to click the second they walk into it. This is quite massive and competitive, and honestly this is the most common aim style I see most snipers use in competitive gameplay. Most people in competitive move erratically and are very unpredictable at times, and can be super hard to track. If you pre-aim, it will make life so much easier, and thus the aim style I would probably recommending the most to you guys is pre-aiming. So which style is the best? Honestly, it does depend. I use a mixture of all three, and you don't want to be one-dimensional. You want to use tracking for long-range control and enemies that are quite grounded and quite predictable as well. You want to be using flicking for fast-paced threats and point-blank situations. And you want to be pre-aiming when you've got got time, space, and knowledge of enemy patterns. And you want to be pre-aiming when you've got time, space, and knowledge of enemy patterns. But honestly, a classic mix-up of pre-aim and tracking should be used. If you aren't incorporating both aim styles into your gameplay, then you should seriously reconsider the way you play sniper and your mechanics. Switching styles depending on the situation is what separates an average sniper from a terrifying one. You're not just aiming, you're adapting, and that is kind of what separates a good sniper from amazing snipers. If you can't incorporate and be fluent in all three of these aim styles, then you are effectively not performing at your best. So, best advice I can probably give is to try and incorporate all three into your gameplay with heavy emphasis on tracking and pre-aiming. Your hardware, sensitivity, and even your posture will affect how you aim. Don't force yourself to be a flick god if your strength is tracking. Build your style around your strength and let it evolve as you improve. Movement as sniper is one of the most underrated parts of the class. People always talk about aim and positioning, but the truth is, if your movement sucks, you're gonna get farmed pretty hard. Whether it's dodging spam, avoiding flanks, or not getting domed in a sniper duel. How you move makes a huge difference. Stop standing still like a statue. Let's just get this one out of the way. Standing still is asking to die. If you scope in and plant your feet, you're a free headshot. I don't really care how cracked your aim is if you're not moving. Moving, a halfway decent enemy sniper, or even a good scout with good mechanics is gonna ruin your day. Even when you're scoped in, try to get in the habit of subtle movements, slight repositioning between shots, anything to really break up your predictability. And after every shot, you want to be relocating. Even just a couple of feet to the side can save you from getting instantly revenge killed. I recommend honestly moving after every shot. It doesn't really matter where, just as long as you're in a different position for your next shot. So in general, movement can only get you so far in sniper. Yes, it's very important, but the entire role of the class does not solely rely on good movement to perform well. It is a combination of movement, aim, positioning, and other things as well. If you've ever messed around with your launch options or config files, you've probably seen players forcing the game to run in DX8 instead of DX9. This isn't just a performance thing. It actually affects how the game renders visual elements, and for sniper mains, it can make a noticeable difference in how the scope feels and functions. You will also gain a noticeable increase in FPS, and I know that's something many of you are looking for. The most obvious and relevant change between DX8 and DX9 is the sniper scope overlay. DX9, the TF2 renders the sniper scope with a semi-transparent black circular overlay, plus blurred edges and subtle lighting effects. There's also a very slight fade-in animation when you scope in, and the edges of the scope can slightly darken your peripheral vision. It also feels very cinematic and also adds unnecessary clutter. In DX8, the scope is way simpler, it's just clean, it's a flat graphic, no fade-ins, no blurs, and no soft edges. The field of view outside the scope appears less obstructed, giving a more clear-cut view of your target. In general, I just find DX8 much easier and cleaner to snipe from. Yes, I've been using DX9 lately, but I honestly just switched simply because I was bored of DX8. DX8 does indeed give you an advantage over 9 when it comes to sniping, and it is something I would highly recommend. I have clips in this video where you can see the difference between the two. With config, you want to build a setup that works with you and not against you. This section is all about making sure your game feels good to play. Config, your HUD, your FPS, and all that stuff directly affects how well you can aim, how smooth your game feels, and how consistently you can land your headshot. It might not be the flashiest part, but it's low-key one of the most important. FPS is quite literally king. You can be the best aimer in the world, but if you're getting 50 FPS in a fight, it won't matter. You need stable and high frame rates. That's your top priority before anything else, in my opinion. If you're not already using a config like master config, you should seriously consider it. It's clean and it helps your game run much more smoother on any type of system. There's no shame in turning down graphics for performance, and TF2 is honestly not a beauty contest. What matters is how fast and how reliable it feels. Your goal should be consistent 144 FPS or higher, especially if you're on a high refresh rate monitor. Trust me, smooth frame rate will enable you to build your muscle memory much more faster, and at the end of the day, sniper is based on muscle memory. Default TF2 is noisy as hell. You don't need giant kill icons, any huge flashing numbers, or any screen shake messing with your shots. You want to be disabling any Viewmodel shakes, you want to be reducing your HUD clutter, and you want to use a very simple yet clean HUD, something like more HUD. The less visual noise on your screen, the easier it is to track heads and stay focused. Let's be real, you don't really want to be using a view model unless it's a minimized view model, which you can toggle off and on in advanced settings. You don't need to see your rifle to know you're holding it. I recommend either turning view models off entirely or using a minimal setting simply by putting this into your auto exec or console. Alright, so let's get into the good stuff. your sensitivity. What matters is your actual DPI and your in-game sensitivity. Here's a good rule of thumb, and this is what I use. Again, sensitivity is subjective, and do not simply copy and paste mine. It's not going to work for you, and it is not what matters. What matters is the process I have explaining how to find the right sensitivity, then sticking to it. But because this is a guide, I'm going to guide you and tell you mine. My DPI is 800, and I used to play on 1.8 in-game. I have now recently changed this to 1.4, but in general somewhere around 2.0 at 800 DPI is a solid starting point, and you can adjust it from there. Lower sensitivity gives you better control for long distance flicks and tracking heads. Yes, it might feel slower at first, but once you get used to it, your precision will skyrocket, and I'm speaking from experience. Don't need ultra low CSGO sensitivity either. Just find something that lets you comfortably track heads without overshooting. So here's where a lot of snipers tend to trip up, which is your zoom sensitivity ratio. Some people mess around with lower zoom sense so it feels more precise while scoped in, but honestly I recommend keeping it at a 1:1 ratio with your normal sensitivity. Why? Because it makes everything more consistent. Whether you're scoped in or not, your muscle memory stays the same, and the last thing you want to be doing is messing with your muscle memory on snipe. No extra brain processing, no sudden mismatch in sensitivity when you zoom. It's just so much more cleaner. Especially if you are flick heavy or a hybrid aim style player, keeping everything aligned will help more than hurt. Probably heard this before, but let's just repeat it for the people at the back. Turn off mouse accel. Mouse acceleration ruins your muscle memory. Your aim should be 100% consistent based on how far you move your mouse, not how fast. So here's how to disable it. In Windows, go to mouse settings, pointer options, and turn off enhanced pointer precision. In launch options, you can just copy and paste this I have on screen. It'll be down in the description below, and you want to be turning raw input on in game. Hit sounds, damage numbers, and kill feed are all optional, but they can actually help you lock in during fight. Using a subtle hit sound to confirm body shots or any headshots, and tweak your damage numbers and colors and sizes so they are clear but not overwhelming. Look, I'm not saying hardware is going to make you a god overnight, but the wrong setup will hold you back. If you're serious about improving consistently, you need a setup that actually supports you. That doesn't mean buying the most expensive gear, but it does mean buying smart, which I'll get into depth later. Your mouse is your most important weapon. Sniper is quite literally built around mouse control. You want a mouse that's accurate, lightweight, and has a good sensor. You want to be looking for a sensor with something like a Pixart 3360, 3370, or 3395, and you're basically in good hands for flawless tracking if you do pick up on one of these sensors. In terms of weight, lighter is so much better. A mouse around 60 to 80 grams gives you more control for flicks, tracking, and any pre-aiming. In terms of shape, this one's quite personal. Try a few until you feel like one's an extension of your hand. Don't force yourself to use a mouse just because it's meta. I personally use an ambidextrous mouse. Polling rate is quite important in a mouse. Most modern gaming mice have 1000 to 4000 Hz polling rate, so just set it to the highest. You're going to get a lower input latency and a much more smoother feel. I personally use a Logitech G Pro Superlight, and it's the best mouse hands down on the entire globe, and I would not recommend any other mouse other than this. Polling rate also goes to 8000 Hz, and if you're still using a budget office mouse and a crusty Death Adder from 07, bro, it's time. Good mousepad equals consistent glide and room to flick. If you're using a low to medium sensitivity, you need space. Don't limit your aim with a tiny pad. Get a large or an extended pad. Some go-to pads is probably Artisan Zero, Zowie GSR, or QCK Heavy, but you do not need to spend something ridiculous on a mousepad. FPS just isn't about frames, it's about feel. A high refresh rate monitor is huge. If you're still on 60 Hz, quite literally seeing and reacting to the game slower than everything else. 144 Hz is the minimum I would recommend. 240 Hz is even better if you've got the rig to push it. It makes tracking so much more smoother. It's one of the few upgrades that immediately makes the game feel different and better. And probably the most important upgrade of all. This is the one thing that will set you back if you do not upgrade, and yes, it is not cheap either. If your monitor does not support 144 Hz or more, then I'm sorry, but there will be a cap to your improvement. 60 Hz is seriously going to prevent you from reaching your potential. And on a 60 Hz monitor, even if you're getting 200 FPS, you're not actually going to experience what true 200 FPS feels like unless you get a 200 Hz monitor or above. Your keyboard honestly does not matter that much, but just do not use garbage. Honestly, as long as your keyboard doesn't double tap or drop inputs, you're honestly fine. Mechanical switches feel nicer and last longer, but they won't make or break your shot. Sniper doesn't rely on WASD as much as Scout or Soldier, but you still want to be fast and quite responsive to movement to dodge, reposition, or surf out a bad fight. Your PC specs, you want to be hitting your FPS targets, and this one's quite simple. Hit 144 FPS consistently. That is your target. If you're dipping under 100 fights, it's upgrade time. TF2 is mainly CPU reliant, so I would recommend prioritizing upgrading your CPU over your GPU if money was an issue. You can honestly run TF2 and hit your 144 FPS targets with a mid-range CPU. I personally use a Ryzen 5 5600X. Yes, it's getting dated, but I can still hit my 144 FPS target. If you're on a toaster and stuck at 40 FPS, you need to be fixing that first. All the guide content in the world won't help if you're lagging through your shot. I know I have listed a lot of config settings here for you to enhance your gameplay, and it can take quite some time for you to set it all. But you can simply download my sniper config. If you want to download it, you can just join my Discord below. It will be in the description, and there will be a download link for the config in my Discord. You may also ask any questions that you have. So here's the deal. You can watch every sniper frag video, read every guide, and still not improve if you're not practicing the correct way. Sniper is quite a mechanical class, but also heavily mental. If you want to get better, you need intentional and consistent practice, not just hopping on for a few pubs and hoping to annihilate everyone overnight. Don't get me wrong, pubs are fun, but they won't push you the way actual focused play does. In a pub, people are less coordinated, they don't punish mistakes as hard, and you don't learn the same way you would in a scrims or officials. If you're only playing in pubs or casual, you're probably reinforcing bad habits without realizing it. You're not going to improve your positioning if no one's punishing you. You're not going to sharpen your aim if you're farming clueless heavies walking in straight lines. Use pubs or casual to warm up or mess around. You want to be using structured play to improve, and a structured way to actually get true practice is by playing in competitive gameplay. Scrims, merc teams, official matches are all quality ways to improve as sniper drastically. Alright, so let's talk about your mechanics. TF2 is not like Valorant or CS where you can spend an hour in aim trainer every day and call it a win, but there's still stuff you can do. DM servers are one of the best ways to warm up and sharpen your mechanics. TR aim maps or reflex trainers like AimLab with TF2 settings can help your raw flick and tracking skills. A good map I love to play is TR Newbots, and I will leave a link to it in the description down below. I play this pretty much daily when I need to snipe for a semi or grand final. Yes, it does bore my mind out, but this is how I get good. Don't overtrain. 20 to 30 minutes of focused DM or aim training before a scrim or official is quite enough. Casual is only good if you want to practice your aim. Everything else you can't really do that. But the most important part you need to be taking away from aim practice is translating that aim into game sense. Hitting bots is great, but if you can't hit moving targets under pressure while reading the flow of a match, you're just wasted skill. You also want to be recording yourself and reviewing. One of the biggest differences between players who plateau and players who level up. And yes, don't worry, with my config you'll be able to view your demos and record, and my config does all this automatically. Record your games, watch them back, yes, even the bad ones, and spot what went wrong. Are you out of position? Did you take too long to switch spots? Why are you not hitting shots that you should be hitting? Did you whiff a shot because your crosshair placement was bad? Even just watching 10 minutes of a scrim demo can help you catch patterns you'd never notice while you're playing. I don't do this anymore, but I used to, but I've learned so much doing this during my earliest years of sniper that I've kind of memorized everything. But for newer snipers, this is what I would be doing, because essentially this is what I did. Watched every demo I played, watched every game I played, and gave myself feedback. Be consistent. Everyone has a good day once in a while. That doesn't mean you're improving. What actually matters is whether your floor is rising, not just your ceiling. That means do not just chase frags just to feel good. You want to be understanding why you're hitting your shots more than often. Are you improving, or is everyone on the other team level 1 beginner bots? You really need to be critical of yourself and understand this concept and not be falsely misguided in it. Even if you're playing like garbage one day, you need to be asking yourself why. Turn everything into a learning opportunity. And play different modes but with purpose. If you're in competitive, focus on scrimming, merc teams, pugs, and officials. The goal is always the same. Put yourself in uncomfortable situations where you're forced to learn. And yes, even try different classes every now and then. It gives you a better insight into how they think, and you will learn their role, which helps you counter them as sniper. Understanding game fundamentals and mechanics on other classes will help you improve on sniper. Sniper isn't just about who you can hit, it's more about who you should hit. Target priority and game sense are what separate pub stars from top competitive Highlander sniper. It's all about making smart decisions. You're not just the guy hitting heads, you're the guy who deletes problems. Your job is to remove the biggest threat at the time. A well-timed pick can end a push before it even starts, so you gotta be asking yourself, who's carrying their team right now? Who's the reason we can't push? And who's about to kill my combo? And then you just simply remove. Sometimes it's the medic, sometimes it's the enemy sniper locking down your team. It really does depend, but your crosshair should always be hunting value, and the biggest biggest threat on the other team. Identify it and prioritize killing them. Don't just be blindly shooting an engineer when you also see a medic in your scope. So I've kind of organized a pick hierarchy, and you just generally want to be following it, although it is quite subjective and it can change depending how good the other team is. Number 1 would be the medic. Picking the medic in a key moment kind of flips the fight instantly. Then you want to be going for the enemy sniper. Especially if they're good, you probably have to deal with them first. They can shut down your entire team. Once they're gone, you've got free reign. Then, the demo man. If there's no demo man, there's also no sticky spam and no sticky control. That is huge for your team's space and survivability. Great snipers aren't just reactive, they also predict. Everyone likes to talk about game sense on sniper, but they don't actually know what it entails other than what I'm about to tell you. Knowing when the enemy is about to push and if the medic has an advantage of Uber over your team. Understanding when your team is weak and needs you to hold a specific angle. Pre-aiming common paths and angles and blocking a sightline to make their push much harder. Rotating before you get pressured, and recognizing when you have the numbers to snipe from an aggressive angle. Now this all comes with experience, but you can just fast track it by actively thinking while you play. Don't just shoot. You gotta be asking yourself why you're holding this angle and what you expect to happen. Playing sniper isn't just about flicks and frags, it's also a mental game. You're playing the highest risk, highest reward class in the game, and that pressure does add up. You don't understand the amount of pressure I feel during a finals game as sniper. Casual, not so much, but competitive, it's very different. If you want to be consistent, you have to get your mental game sorted. This section is all about keeping your cool, bouncing back, and playing like a rock when you're on the verge of tilting. You're gonna get stabbed, you're gonna get flanked, and you're gonna get bombed. You're gonna take so much damage, and it's part of the class. You're very fragile and people will target you. But what separates a strong sniper is how you respond. Are you tilting? Are you raging? And do you start doing things that go against the fundamentals of sniper out of frustration? Or do you think, alright, well, where did I mess up and how can I fix it for the next life? You need to be treating every death as information. Did you overstay a sightline? Was your positioning too greedy? Were you scoped in for too long? And do you take any buffs? If you treat deaths as feedback, you'll improve way faster and you're going to be tilting way less. It's also easy to get wrapped up in the scoreboard, but here's the thing. Everyone does have off games. If you are obsessed with your KD, you're going to stress yourself out and you'll start forcing plays that make things worse. Instead, you want to be focusing on your impact. Did you stall a push with a key pick? Did you zone out their medic? Did you deny a sightline and buy your team time by your presence? That stuff doesn't really always show up on the scoreboard, and most people who don't main sniper don't really understand the things I've just listed and think it's just an aim and click class, when it's really not. There's a lot more depth to it. Last one thing here, just remember that your presence is just important as your pick rate, especially in Highlander. There are a lot of times where not shooting is smarter than firing. Holding a charged scope on a push angle forces enemies to play more safe, peek more carefully, and waste a lot of time even if you don't shoot a bullet. They know you are there, and that fear is quite enough. You've denied a push with nothing but a red dot and discipline. If you saw a soldier or an engineer to your right on the flank and you tried to go for that pick, you're not really denying a combo push, which would probably be more crucial, especially if they're about to Uber in. So we've gone through everything from sensitivity and positioning to different aim styles, movement, config, gear, game sense, and more. But if there's one big takeaway from this, it's that sniper is just more about hitting shots. Yeah, hitting shots feels amazing, but what really separates an average sniper from a dangerous one is awareness, knowing when to peek, when to halt, knowing when to stand, how to deal with pressure, how to support your team while being a threat. It's a constant mental game, and the better you get at reading the match, the more value you bring to your team. Whether you're playing in pugs, pubs, competitive Highlander, scrims, merc teams, or officials, this guide gives you everything I've learned over 13 years of playing and winning as sniper. It's all part of the experience, but if you keep putting in the time, tweaking your habits, and thinking critically about your play, you'll start to see huge results. If you have any inputs or disagreements, I would love to hear it down below in the comments. If you like the guide, please remember to give it a like and share, and if you want access to my config, do not forget to join my Discord down below to download it.